Can you imagine a belief so strong you'd be willing to die for it? Not just die, but withstand the agony of being burned alive. Well, that's the story we're diving into today. The incredible life of Anne Askew. She was a woman whose courage in one of England's most brutal eras really makes you question everything you think you know about faith and power. All right, so to really get Anne's story, you have to picture what England was like in the 16th century. This was a time of Henry VIII, and it was just this intense period of religious turmoil. The fight between Protestants and Catholics wasn't some polite disagreement, oh no. This was a battle for survival. Believing the wrong thing could literally get you arrested, tortured, and killed, and these executions weren't hidden away some dark dungeon, they were public spectacles. They were designed to send a really powerful and absolutely terrifying message. So let's take a look at the stage where these grim dramas played out. And that is Smithfield, which was just on the outskirts of the city of London. And it wasn't some quiet, creepy corner of the city. It was a bustling area packed with markets and fairs, and that's exactly why the authorities chose it. An execution here was pure theatre, a horrifying performance for everybody to see. It was the state sending a crystal clear message about who was in charge. So what was the crime that warranted this kind of brutal public display? It was called heresy. Now, in simple terms, that's the crime of reading the scriptures and coming to a different conclusion than the official state church, daring to believe something different. And the punishment, which was meant to purify your soul and scare everyone else straight, was to be burned alive at the stake. Now let's see how this incredibly dangerous world affected the life of one very remarkable woman, Anne Askew. Her story really brings the human cost of all this into sharp focus. Anne Askew was not your typical 16th century woman, not even close, at a time when women were basically supposed to be silent and obedient. Anne was a total force of nature. She could read, she was incredibly outspoken, and she had this fiery passion for her faith. She didn't just read the Bible, she preached her own ideas about it to anybody that would listen. And get this, she even tried to divorce her Catholic husband, which was pretty much unheard of back then. All of this made her a radical, a real threat to the whole social and religious order. The seeds of this conflict were planted really early on, when she was just 15 years old, and she was forced to marry a devout Catholic man. His beliefs were the complete opposite of her own Protestant faith, which was just starting to blossom. It's basically set up the impossible choice between her duties as a wife and her deepest personal convictions. Well, as you can imagine, her bold preaching and that fierce independent spirit did not go unnoticed. It was really only a matter of time before she got the attention of the most powerful men in England, which put her in a direct and very dangerous collision course with the state. So, when Anne was finally arrested, her captors were after something bigger than just her. They thought she was part of a whole network of Protestant sympathisers, maybe even some inside the Queen's own inner circle. So, they tortured her on the rack at the Tower of London for one reason and one reason only. They wanted her to give up their names. But despite unimaginable pain, Anne Askew didn't break. She refused to betray her friends. Her resolve was just unshakable. She protected her entire network and chose to face the full fury of the state completely on her own. But Anne's strength wasn't just physical endurance. She was also incredibly smart during her interrogations. She went head to head with these highly educated men, and she used her sharp wit and deep knowledge of the Bible to totally outmaneuver them. She was their intellectual equal, and that fact, I'm absolutely sure, infuriated them. Her refusal to name names, her refusal to back down from her beliefs, well, that sealed her fate, and it led to the final horrifying act right back where we started at Smithfield. The torture she went through was beyond brutal. The rack literally dislocated her joints, shattering her body and leaving her crippled. So on the day of her execution, Anne Askew was so broken she couldn't walk, she couldn't even stand. She had to be carried to the stake on a chair. Her ruined body was put on display intentionally. A final terrifying warning to the crowd. And this is the real heart of her story. They had shattered her body, but her spirit, her conviction, that was completely unbreakable. So you have to wonder, right? Did this whole horrific public display actually work? Did it scare people into submission like the authorities wanted? A lot of the time, the answer was a resounding no. See, public executions were a huge gamble for the state. Instead of creating fear, you often created martyrs, heroes for the cause. In their attempt to silence Anne Askew, the authorities accidentally turned her into an icon, making her story echo for centuries to come. So, what we take away from Anne Askew's story isn't just a history lesson. It's about the incredible power of human conviction, and it forces us to ask this really profound question that still matters today. What is it deep inside the human spirit that can make an idea more powerful than the fear of death itself? Find out more about the public executions at Smithfield on our episode 154 of the London History Podcast on your preferred podcast player.